In this week's episode of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, Tekkadan has finally arrived at the space colonies and are this much closer to Earth. We also get a brand new intro for the series, which is very spoilerific, but honestly, I think it's pretty freaking awesome. Not only do we get to see some brand new mobile suits and characters, but it looks like we also get a very first glimpse at our masked villain of Iron-Blooded Orphans. That's right, we're finally getting our Char clone of the series, and I'm guessing it's going to be McGillis. He's wearing a mask which also seems to have this headdress which is attached to it, and it looks a little ridiculous at first, but the mobile suit that he's going to be piloting, oh man, does that look awesome. Keen viewers will probably also notice that there's a brand new Gundam which appears in the intro, which I believe is known as the Gundam Chimaris. At least that's what I believe they're calling the Gunpla version of this mobile suit. We also get to see that the Barbatos is going to get some brand new weapons. It has this massive, ridiculous Buster Sword. That is going to be awesome. So this week's episode was very interesting. A lot of our characters got separated in this week's episode because you have a lot of different groups going to all of these space colonies for their very own reasons. First, let's go ahead and talk about Kudelia Ina Bernstein. She's still feeling the effects of being kissed by Mikazuki in the last episode, and that's sort of messing with her head a little bit. When they get close to the space colony, she suggests that she goes to do a little bit of shopping, which at first I was like, wow, what an ungrateful bitch. Why is she doing this right now? But she actually has good intentions. She actually wants to clean up the ship as well as the crew because frankly, they all smell like shit. However, she is not going alone. Of course, she is going to be joined by Fumitan, who seems really annoyed by this, and that's because she actually was planning on double-crossing Kudelia. More on that later. She's also joined by Atra, Mikazuki, and of course, Biscuit. Now, this is a really important scene because not only do we get a lot of really ridiculous, tense moments between Kudelia and Mikazuki, but Biscuit apparently has another brother. Not just two sisters, but this brother who happens to live in this space colony. Oh, and they call the space colonies Dorts because they're owned by the Dorts Corporation or company. That's just a really dorky sounding name. Anywho, he gets in contact with his brother on the colony, who also seems like he is working either with Gallahorn or some sort of other third party that's trying to assassinate Kudelia Ina Bernstein in order to instigate some sort of crazy mobile suit war. You know, pretty typical for the par for a Gundam anime series. The Hammerhead team is at this other space colony where they're working on some of the mobile suits like the Greys, as well as the Gujin, and they actually remove the top portion of the mobile suit, and you can see within the inner frame that there's actually a proper looking Gundam head. That looks really freaking awesome. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with this thing. It's pretty obvious that Akihiro is going to have one hell of an upgrade as we get closer to the end of the series. And then you have Orga and his group, who go to this other space colony, or Dort, so that they can unload some cargo, but unbeknownst to them, their cargo is actually all of this weaponry, such as mobile workers and guns, and basically what's going on is that all of these space colonies are really no different from Mars. On the surface, they look all nice and pristine, but everybody who lives within the space colonies works themselves to the bone. They make barely any money whatsoever, and basically all of the 1%ers or super rich people live on Earth, and they live like shit. Not too different from the people on Mars, to be perfectly honest. And when they've seen what's happened with Kudelia Ina Bernstein, they've decided that they're actually going to revolt against Gallahorn and the Earth and all these other organizations, and now that they have the weaponry to do that, it is go time. But it's very obvious that this has all been some sort of setup to actually kill Kudelia Ina Bernstein, make Tekkadan look bad, so that they can instigate a cause for war. It's pretty convoluted and crazy, but honestly, this is the moment that I've been waiting for. The turning point of the series when shit bout to get real. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans? This was a very nice, slow episode which focused on a lot of different character groups and really expanded on the entire world of Gundam. What I really loved about this one a lot, however, was that they finally arrived at Earth, and just getting to see everyone's reaction to seeing it for the first time really makes you realize that they are on the other opposite end of space and haven't even gotten close to the space colonies, which are also a treat for them. There's a little bit of action at the end of this episode when suddenly this Gallahorn peacekeeping group comes in and they start just like firing upon these workers who, now that they have guns, decide to start firing back. And these guys are just like blindly dedicated to their cause. It's actually kind of ridiculous. It's obvious that they're being manipulated. I think by that one guy who goes by the name of Gordon Nobles. There's a lot of different factions which are at work here, but honestly, my favorite thing about this episode was probably the intro. It just gave me such a nice tease to all of the things that are going to be happening, especially because in the next episode, we are definitely going to see our masked villain for the series. I at first didn't even think that there was going to be one in this show because we're already at the halfway point, and this is supposed to be only like a 25 episode series, 24, 25, somewhere around that range, and I didn't think they would have the opportunity to do that, but it's weird because if it is McGillis, it's just weird that he's going to this like weird theatrical level to, actually wear this mask, which has this giant headdress. Maybe it's someone else, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty damn sure it's McGillis. Like, all evidence points to him being the Char clone of the series, so it's almost an absolute guarantee, and I can't wait to see that mobile suit in action. The intro was great. I wouldn't say that it's as good as Raise Your Flag. The song Raise Your Flag is just so intense and really gets you pumped up. This one had a lot of energy behind it too, and the imagery was also really awesome, probably the strongest part to it. And I will say that the ending is definitely not as good as the first one. The ending song, I think, Orphans no Namida, was just so atmospherically perfect, and honestly, one of my favorite endings from the entire Gundam franchise. It's just so beautiful, and the imagery is just so explosive. This one's just sort of standard. That's the feeling that I got from it. That being said, it is great that Iron-Blooded Orphans is finally back in 2016, because I've been really waiting to see what was going to happen since the end of the last episode, and this one didn't disappoint. We're getting some really great new developments, and it almost feels like a different show at this point. What I will say is this week's episode was handled very well, good animation, good artwork, on the technical signs, a very nice looking episode. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5, a very nice start for 2016 in Iron-Blooded Orphans. I can't wait to see where the second half of the story is going to go from here. But if you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. Did you have a favorite scene from this episode? Who do you think is the masked villain? Come on, it has to be McGillis Farid. How could it not be him? And what do you want to see from the rest of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans? Please tell me in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you'd like to, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!